Very good. There you go, Mike.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the LGBTQIA plus Intersectional Task Force. I'm Mike Waters, and I chair this task force appointed by the Human Rights Commission. I don't know whether I need to say what ward I live in anymore, but my pronouns remain they and them. So I will go ahead and pass it to Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ostrand-Ponchin. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission and I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll pass it to Kelsey.
Great, thanks, Kathy. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission, and I am a member, let's see, I always forget what ward I'm in. Ward 4, I think, with the new remap. And I will pass to Tricarico.
Thank you. I'm Tricarico. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission and a resident of Ward 2. And I'll pass it back to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. Gretchen Bennett, staff to the commission. Thank you. Oh, and she, her pronouns. Sorry.
And Gretchen, did we have any public comment?
No public comment this evening.
All right. Our next item is approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes? And would anybody like to make a motion?
This is Kelsey. I move to approve the previous meeting's minutes.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand, either way. Any opposed? I think not. Minutes are approved, and that takes us to our main topic of the evening, which is the Safe Spaces Project. And to start, I'll defer to Gretchen actually to find out what the status is.
Micah, absolutely. That makes sense for sure. I brought a few discussion items for us for you tonight as we think about the Safe Spaces implementation. And let's see. In an email this morning, I also resent the resource sheet just in case, because I was hoping we could reference that this evening. Let's see. So I think maybe 3 topics to highlight, and then I'll come back to them. One is helping to build out that resource sheet. I wanted to talk about your thoughts about some of the sections and see if any of you have resources or interest in helping to write out some of the pieces. And if not, that's okay, but I thought I would check and see what the interest might be there. On another part of it, which is the decal, I wondered if we could talk a little bit about how to achieve a financial starting point. I'm noticing that we need to have some sort of idea about sort of how to step in, and I wanted to get some thoughts and input around that. And also kind of related to that, perhaps, received some suggestions and feedback about how it could be really helpful to include people who operate spaces that could be safe spaces to get them involved now at this stage. I think that's reflected in what you'd imagine back a few months ago, but I wondered if this would be the right time, and perhaps even while the decal is still in development form, because then they even maybe could contribute into that conversation. So wanted to think about how to start to engage some operators of public spaces, future safe spaces, into the discussion tonight. So brainstorming how that might look. And then one thing that's more quick is I wanted you to know that the city's webpage is undergoing a change. It's shifting to a new platform, and it'll go live in April. And so it'll be neat to see how the content transfers over, but just wanted you to know, as we imagine the current webpage, there'll be some transitions. And so wanted to talk about that a little bit, but I think that's what I had in mind for the discussion tonight. Does that sound okay, Mike?
That sounds totally right on. What was the first one? I think we can just take them in order. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Well, if you wouldn't mind opening up that Safe Spaces resource guide sketch, that would be great. I've noted a few that we don't have anything written on right now. And it occurred to me that this might be a neat way for us to collaborate. I know we were imagining introductory remarks, and I think, Mike, do you already have that on your task list? I think you might, like some sort of like intro, maybe a few lines that is at the top of the webpage that intros in. I thought maybe you already planned that, but I wasn't positive.
I think you're right that I volunteered to do it, but the more important thing that needs to happen is I have to write a note to myself. And then it actually gets done.
Well, and you may want to wait till it's done so you really have a full picture. I don't know, but I just wanted to confirm that you have that in mind.
Yeah.
And great.
Yes.
Great. Another one is that second section about visual nonverbal communication. We had some ideas there, and I went back and looked through materials and realized I don't really have a lot in writing on that. And I think that speaks to how you generally want to see ensure language is inclusive and welcoming in any kind of signage, like that might be the restroom signs would be a good clear example, or if people have artwork or other kinds of displays, or all of our communities represented somehow in the artwork. What is the nonverbal communication that happens when people enter? You know, is it off-putting? Does it appear uncomfortable? Is it very welcoming? And writing up just a little blurb and or finding written material that might already be out there is what's involved in that one. Let's see, I've got three more, so maybe I'll share all the other three and then we can come back to it a little bit. Another one, I think we have some links that I need to get my hands on again. And no, there's a link below. There's a link below about what retailers can do about racial profiling. My question is whether or not you'd like to write out something around highlights for what could be suggested procedure that draws from that link to help kind of simplify or crystallize that point, because I think that might be one of the primary points. Another one is underneath subsection C, where we talk about training. There's some suggestions: leading with race, grounding in history, frequently asked questions, and well, I guess that's it, where I wondered if anybody had interest in trying to put some paragraphs together around those. All the rest of them, the ones that I didn't mention, we have materials over the years that either we've collected or some of you have provided to me or other commissioners have written in the past. And so I have some things to draw on all of the others. But the ones I mentioned just now, I don't yet. And so I thought I'd pause and see if anyone was interested in finding material, drafting material, etc. And I know that's hard on Zoom without a whiteboard, so I might recap. The first one is like visual nonverbal communication. So that could include signage, representation in artwork or other displays, nonverbal communication. Another one is pulling from the link that Tricarico already provided about suggested procedures around prevention and profiling. And then the last one is, as we kind of introduce training information, a little bit about, I think this is suggestions for selecting a training, but you know, a little bit about leading with race, grounding in history, and perhaps some FAQs. One other maybe context piece about that is, you might remember we hadn't ever intended, I think, to provide oodles of free training and lots of free consulting. I I liked how Tricarico put it one meeting where she said, we're sort of like the nurse line where you call and you get some consultation and you check in on what resources might be good. But we didn't want to displace the consulting resources that are out there that provide that already. And we also lack the resources. I mean, we can't possibly provide all of the free training and consultation needed around the city.
I have a thought about that. Just a note that you accidentally misgendered Tricarico. So
Thank you. I'm so sorry, Tricarico. I apologize.
but I do have a thought, which is that you know, perhaps what we want in that section is less about the content that would be in training, but more that list of who are the trainers that are available, you know, with a special emphasis on local, because we have here in Salem some trainers, Oni being one that I know that you know, keeping the money that businesses might spend locally, I think is a good idea. But of course, there's tons in Portland as well. If there's a topic area where we don't have a trainer available. I wondered, yeah, if you have any kind of list already of those local and Portland-based trainers that businesses might be able to use, or if that might be something that you'd need some help around.
Thank you. I have access to what's going to already be on the, I want to call it there by its acronym, and I'm pausing to see if I can remember what it stands for. ORPIN, the Oregon Public,
Yeah.
Oregon Procurement Information Network, I think. And so I would have that information plus just people that I've learned about over the years, but it's a pretty small list. So I would absolutely agree and welcome those referrals. And to your point about content, what a good point, because how on earth could we write content that could be reflective of all of the, yeah, that could be really tricky.
And it could be particularly good if we had such a list also to, you know, sort of categorize the different trainers by their specialty, so that if you had a specific issue you were looking at as a business, you know, one that comes to mind is that at my business, we had a very, very specific need around pronouns for workers, and making sure that everybody understood that process and the importance of not only using the correct pronoun, but understanding privacy. It was a little deeper than probably what we're going to get in this program. But so the idea being that we had a specific trainer with trans background, and every animal in my house right now is this is Panther.
It's funny, you could see the shadow coming before you could see the cat.
They're both just hamming it up for the camera. They don't get enough camera time, I think. But anyway, yeah, I think like a not only a list of available trainers, but what are their specialties, so that we can find those that specialize in race or LGBTQIA plus issues or disability or whatever, what have you.
Thank you. So as I'd be collecting that information, do you suppose it would be, you know, name, specialty, maybe a line or two of description and contact information? Would that essentially,
like
yeah.
that. Something like that. Yeah, I think that's.
Great. Okay. Well, how about that piece about visual nonverbal communication? Is anyone interested in taking a try at gathering information or writing something on that?
I would be interested in doing that.
Thank you. I love the cats.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. What about that profiling one? The other one was, does anybody want to try to tease out profiling, like suggested procedures to prevent profiling, or see if you can find that. There is a link in the document that can be a resource.
I wouldn't mind taking a look at that and seeing what I can find.
Great, thank you. Great. Well, good. The next, would anybody have any other just comments or suggestions as you've had a chance to review this a little bit more? Is anything missing, or is anything on here funny that you wouldn't want to see, or?
Down in the section of resources suggested but not yet developed, I do think that simple primer on chapter 97 is important, and I'd be happy to try.
Really?
I've only
Mike,
read it
thank
before.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, I would so appreciate that, Mike. Thank you.
Well, you could probably use that for other things, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of documents that I could send to you just in case they're helpful.
Of like things that have been done before.
Yeah. Great. So let me make a note to do that. I appreciate that. I kept meaning to get to that all month, and I can offer you some starting points. Thank you.
One of the things I'm pretty passionate about is plain language, and so taking what's in there and just deriving it down to plain language. But I interrupted Tricarico. Did you have something, Tricarico?
Yeah, I don't know if I've sent this one already, but I recently stumbled upon the Gender Wheel and their resource, the Pronoun Protocol. Are you familiar with that one, Mike?
No.
It's really, really good. So I'll send it to you, Gretchen, so you can send it out to everybody. It's basically like a framework to always use inclusive language. So like instead of saying things like mom and dad, you would say parent, right? When you're talking about, people at school, for example. Basically, you pretty much always use they unless you know otherwise. Unless it's a confirmed space, you don't ask someone's gender. It's theirs to tell. So it's really a good guide on how to be inclusive, how to make space for pronoun affirming language or genderless language, so you aren't misgendering, but also not forcing anybody to out themselves. So it's just a really good tool. And I think there's other things on the website that would be really helpful if people wanted to go a little deeper into, why pronouns are important and like gender identity and all that fun stuff. So I'll add that as another resource.
Thank you. Anything else on the resource sketch? Okay, well, the next part was decal and gathering additional voices and input into it. I at the risk of being too chicken and egg, I imagined sort of launching a process to get hands raised from potential artists and realize they'll need some starting point. Are you thinking $500 or $500,000? And I've signaled to the city the interest in having funds to pay for the art, and kind of same thing, like, well, kind of what are you thinking? What's the ballpark of what are you thinking? And then the companion question is, would there be other voices we'd want to bring into that conversation, like maybe one or two people who operate businesses or one or two people who operate nonprofits or other types of spaces where people gather. So wanted to bring that conversation tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really good conversation, and I have no clear idea about the best way to do it. And some of that is because my background in the industry, right? As a graphic designer, it can really, really range. And we live in kind of a weird world where people can go online and have somebody in another country make them a logo for $25 all the way up to a pretty sophisticated branding and agency can take you through a $10,000 process pretty quickly around development. And there's a tail or tail. I think it becomes just a question of maybe what seems right and fair in this moment. And that's very subjective and kind of messy, but given that this is a community thing and that we're looking for an artist and not necessarily a full branding campaign, it kind of, if I was going to ballpark what I was thinking, like $1,500 to $2,500 ish. But I don't really know the best way to quantify that. I do know it takes a lot of time, this type of work. And some of what takes the time is the engagement of stakeholders. So if we envision a process where we are stakeholders and the Human Rights Commission are stakeholders, and we want the mayor to sign off on it, and I'm just just like extrapolating, but like, and we want businesses to provide input, that could be a very big project that would definitely be above that threshold that I just described. So it's a really a little bit dicey around how to do it. I wonder as well if the Arts Commission has some ideas about perhaps what they've paid for public art in the past, and if there's any kind of corollary there. Public art is a little bit different in that those pieces are intended to be really timeless, and we talked about having a decal created maybe once every year. So it has always felt like the most confusing part of this process to me. So I would defer to others on the group to say what they think.
I don't think I have any new thoughts than what you've already said, Mike, and what you've said sounds reasonable to me. It's not something I'm really, not my area of expertise by any means.
Yeah, same here, Kathy.
I guess I'm ignorant on exactly what we are looking for. When we say decal, what do we mean by decal?
Specifically, it's the artwork for the decal, and it would need to be artwork that was created that could be, it would need to have a digital form so that it could be printed and reproduced for these. And the decal is what goes in the window of a business that's participating in the Safe Spaces program. Our thought was that it would be an opportunity to use a local artist who was part of one of the identity communities that we serve, because that would bring more meaning to it. But it does make that does make it a little more complicated in terms of figuring out what we want to do.
Great, thank you. That helps.
What do you think, Gretchen, in terms of like engaging like maybe the Arts Commission or some other stakeholder to help us kind of figure this out?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. My discussion with them was quite a few months ago now with the staff liaison and who had checked in with some of the members. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was a bit of a chasm, like a real difference between the public art and decal. And so not as sure they had as much to contribute, given the very different medium and objective and everything. But I absolutely should go back and refresh my memory on that conversation and check back in. I'm wondering if it would make sense to write up a bit of a suggested process. And then to the point about gathering more voices, I wanted to see if you think, for example, this meeting next month might be an appropriate place we could invite others to join for a broader conversation. You know, we could sort of have a starting point and a couple of questions to help us get to that goal, and
Yeah.
and sort of tease it out with some more folks. Maybe invite somebody from the Public Arts Commission if they're interested, and also perhaps people from the business or public benefit, you know, people who operate spaces to join us in the conversation and just have a few more perspectives on it.
I think that sounds like a good idea. I think that sounds like a good idea, especially for me, since this is my relative area of expertise. I've actually been out of that field for quite a few years. So when even just a few minutes ago, when I was saying 1,500 to 2,500, I was like, I wonder if it's gone up, you know, like, so just having some other voices in there, and I can check in with some like colleagues around that. And then process wise, I might have some things from back when I was doing more branding work that might be helpful, like in terms of, you know, how do you have information gathering, and then concept sharing, and how do you structure that process a little bit, and that might be helpful.
Thank you, for sure. And that is where I have a couple of examples just from the city's procurement process. And also, I know I'm a little bit familiar with the Salem Public Art Commission's acquisition of Mural art a few years ago. You might remember that. So they kind of had a description of what they were looking for, and then they invited, you know, they had a process lined out, and that's an example of a process, but it led to some of the public art that you see downtown. If you've gone in and around like JCPenney's and Rudy's, you can see some art painted on the buildings there, and that was commissioned by them, and they had a process for acquiring the artists to do that. So
Great.
Yeah, I think that'd be great to have. We could all have some examples and see what might fit this situation. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds actually very similar to what we're doing. The only difference is that the output is a digital file, really.
Great point. Yeah, good point.
So that might really fit the bill in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that as a reminder, like our goal was just that this would make it more meaningful. It would make the decal not just something that was pumped out of a logo factory, but something that really reflected the community. And then the other idea was that we would do this process annually, so that as people renewed, it would be like a collector's item. They could collect little different decals over the years. So I do think it has value and meaning.
Me too.
And would love to engage in that process. Very fun.
Good. So I can sure reach out to Salem Public Arts Commission, and then we start thinking about potential connections and resources for people who operate public spaces and business type spaces. And I know there's the Downtown Main Street Association, I think, was one suggestion given to me. I checked in with our urban development department, and the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce is another that would have a vehicle to connect with a large number of businesses and retail outlets in the city. I don't know if any of you have relationships where you'd like to initiate those contacts, or if you'd like me to initiate those contacts, and or other ideas for the voices. And I have to love your cat on the shelf up there back there. It's so fun.
It's Animal Kingdom tonight.
It's awesome.
I love how he's playing like he's a statue. Like, you don't see me. I'm not here. Sorry. Very distracting.
It's fun. It's very fun.
That all sounds great to me. Any other comments on the decal from others?
Very good. And it sounds like you're open to some guests at the next meeting. So for example, if some folks said, well, sure, I'll come and join the conversation, that sounds okay.
Yeah.
Great. Then, where are my notes? That might be it, because I pretty much told you the web page is changing. So I already said that. There's not much more to say about that. I mean, I think we were imagining a page for this program on the city's website. And in the current website, I imagine it would be in relationship to the Human Rights Commission page after the initial launch, when there's an opportunity for communications, but then it'll live on the Human Rights Commission page, but we'll need to see and experience together how the new page and the content migrates over, and then we can have some input into how it would be then.
That all sounds really good. I did note that on our timeline, we were thinking that we might be able to publish information in January, just the bare bones of what we're doing, but that seems a little premature based on our discussion. How do you think this impacts the timeline?
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. I was wondering about that too. A related question is, I don't know, and a related question would be, because I guess we could easily put up a description right now. Like anytime we could put up the description that we've all kind of looked at and reviewed, and then maybe say something like coming soon, so that people have a kind of a bit of a teaser that it's coming. For more information or to participate in the development, let us know.
Yeah.
We could definitely do that. But I am wondering about the timeline, because if we wanted to launch in June, it almost seems like we need to have the decals in hand in June.
Yeah, what the timeline lists, I'm looking at it now, is that the decal process kind of takes place February, March, April. And then by May, we have it finalized. And then we have them in hand in June to launch the program. So that still seems pretty doable if we have the discussion. Of course, we'll be at the end of the month, likely next month. So that kind of may be a little bit truncated timeline, but I think it's most important to have a process that's really engaged with community partners than it is to hit an arbitrary timeline that we love June because it's Pride Month, but there's recognitions every month that this can be tied to. So yeah, that's my thinking on it. What do others think?
I agree. I really love the idea of engaging with our community to create this.
Great.
Very
This is
good.
Kiriko. I wonder if we could get Krista to join, because she specializes in making things accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing community. And I'd really like to know if she's available to offer her perspective on, what would she like to see, or how can we make sure that, we have everybody included in that.
I love that.
Very good. I'd be happy to extend an invite. If this meeting time doesn't work, we might also be able to use a little bit of time at the Human Rights Commission to get the commission's thoughts, including Krista, if she can't come in February. Very good.
That's excellent.
Okay. Well, good. We can proceed, I guess as described then. I can't think of any other questions unless there's other things on folks' mind. I guess one thing to just double check, it sounds like it was okay to do a coming soon little short description.
I think it's a good idea. That way, if somebody does stumble upon it, or if you talk with somebody in your day-to-day dealings, Gretchen, because you talk to so many people, and you meet somebody who would be a good fit for the program, you can give them a little preview.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I could probably even get a sign up here to get updates or something like that. That would be nice.
I do have a question about the various things that we each agreed to look into. Is there a time frame for that? Like, is that by the next meeting? Would you want something a little bit sooner?
In my mind, that would all be part of the content that publishes when we launch this. So unless I don't have the timeline open in front of me, but to me, in time for publishing in June, so May, we'd want to have everything finalized. So I think you've got a little bit of time to research and develop, but please correct me if you all are thinking something different.
That sounds right to me, although I know for me personally, I will need to do it this month just so that I mark it off.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's time for that resource development. It would be maybe helpful if we had all of the resources by, say, our April meeting, so that we could look at the packet together and make sure that we felt good. What do you all think of that?
I was thinking that too. So enough time for us all to review it, to make sure that everything flows together, that it's got all the information that we think it should. Yeah.
That sounds great.
It gives me a thought. Perhaps when we ask folks for input and to come to the February meeting around decal development, I wonder if it's a two-part ask. And then I say, please come back to our April meeting, because we'd also like to get your feedback on the resource packet and collection. Would this be the kind of thing that you think would be helpful? Are there missings, omissions? Is that too much? Or maybe if they like us in February, however you want to approach that, but just a thought.
We could offer both, and then, they can do both if their schedule allows, and if not, we can try to get them for at least one meeting, because I think it'd be great to have people involved at any phase before we get to that publishing phase.
Great.
And they may have some suggestions that we just haven't thought of that we want to include. So I think asking for that feedback, if they're willing and have the time, be good.
Great. Well, Mike, that's all I thought of to ask today. I don't know if there's other things on safe spaces.
I think we've made a good amount of progress on it, and I'm really excited about watching my cat do this death drop that he's about to attempt. Okay, he changed his mind. Good. Very good. Yeah, I think that's all on safe spaces. That's excellent. What is our next topic? Sorry, I'm getting the giggles. It's just
No, it's fun.
What's going on back there? Our next topic was around our regular meeting time, and this was just a check-in to see if people were generally liking this meeting time, or if we wanted to consider doing a doodle poll to see if there was a time that was, he is going to attempt it. Wow. To see if there was a time that that was more preferable. I personally am fine with the meeting time, but I thought with this being a new year and having some new members, that it might not be bad to do a doodle poll. So I just, yeah, what do you all think?
This is Kelsey. My evenings are mostly free since I started my new job. So I think every night but Thursday is free, and that's flexible too. So
cool.
I like the Wednesdays. I like the time of the month as well. Halfway between our full commission meetings, I think works out well. So I'm fine keeping the time.
Yeah, it works well for me too. Somehow miraculously, I have not left my Wednesdays solid. So I'm okay with moving it, but I'm also flexible if we need to change it. I'm sorry, I'm okay with let's do the same thing. I'm okay keeping it, and I'm flexible if we want to move it.
Okay, great. I don't think that, it doesn't sound then like there's any need for us to do a doodle poll and look for other dates. But if Gretchen, if you do hear from others like Amelia or Byron that they might need a different timing, then I think we can discuss that then, but this time works great for me.
Very good.
I think that's everything except for member remarks and announcements. Does anybody have remarks or announcements?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to chair, Mike. This really helps us keep our momentum going, and I massively appreciate it.
I feel so glad that you'll have me. It was important for me to cut back on the things I was doing a little bit, but I still really, really wanted to do this, and especially work on this project. It's going to be really cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, seeing no other member remarks and announcements, I think we are done. It was great to see everyone.